History is full of powerful leaders who shaped the world. Some are remembered for innovation, culture, and progress, but others left a very different kind of legacy. Their rule was defined by fear, violence, and absolute control. Across different eras and civilizations, certain rulers became infamous for the way they used power. Today we are looking at 10 rulers whose reigns became symbols of brutality in history. This is the story of the 10 most brutal rulers in history. Number 10. Vlad the Impaler. Our list begins in the 15th century, with Vlad II of Wallachia, better known as Vlad the Impaler. He ruled a small principality located between powerful regional empires, including the Ottoman Empire and the Kingdom of Hungary. Because of this dangerous position, Vlad constantly faced threats from both outside enemies and internal political rivals, who hoped to take control of the region. Maintaining authority in such an unstable environment required a strong military presence and a reputation that discouraged rebellion. Vlad quickly developed a leadership style that relied heavily on intimidation. Over time he became widely known for extremely harsh punishments, designed to frighten anyone who considered challenging his rule. Stories describing these punishments spread across Europe and helped create the dark reputation that still surrounds his name today. Number 9. Ivan the Terrible. Ivan IV became the first ruler in Russian history to officially adopt the title of Tsar. When he first came to power during the 16th century, he introduced several reforms that helped strengthen the Russian state and centralize authority. For a time his rule appeared relatively effective and stable. However, as the years passed, Ivan became increasingly suspicious of the powerful noble families surrounding him. He feared that many of them were secretly plotting to remove him from power. In response, he created a special force known as the Oprichniki, whose role was to identify and punish anyone suspected of disloyalty. This organization quickly gained enormous power and operated with very few restrictions. Entire families could be arrested or punished if they were believed to be connected to political conspiracies. Ivan's paranoia eventually created an atmosphere of fear across much of Russia. Number 8. Leopold II of Belgium. King Leopold II ruled Belgium during the late 19th century, but the actions that made him one of the most controversial rulers in history took place far away from Europe. Leopold managed to gain control of a vast territory in Central Africa known as the Congo Free State. What made this situation unusual was that the region did not become a typical colony of Belgium. Instead, it was controlled personally by the king himself. Leopold turned the territory into a large system focused on extracting natural resources, especially rubber, which was extremely valuable at the time. Local communities were forced to meet demanding production quotas, and entire villages were expected to provide labor. Over time, reports from missionaries and journalists began to reveal the harsh conditions that existed across the region. International criticism eventually forced the Belgian government to remove the Congo from Leopold's personal control. Number 7. Timur, also known as Tamerlane in Western history, was a powerful conqueror who built one of the largest empires of the 14th century. Born in Central Asia, he rose to prominence through a series of military campaigns that expanded his control across Persia, the Middle East, and parts of India and Russia. Timur believed that warfare was not only about defeating enemies on the battlefield, but also about destroying their willingness to resist. His armies often used tactics designed to create fear long before a battle even began. Cities that resisted his forces sometimes faced complete destruction. Because of these methods, Timur quickly developed a reputation that spread across many regions of Asia and the Middle East. Despite the brutality of his campaigns, he also invested heavily in architecture and culture, transforming his capital city of Samarkand into a major center of learning and art. Number 6. Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin became the leader of the Soviet Union after a long struggle for power within the Communist Party during the early 20th century. Once he consolidated control, Stalin governed the country for nearly 3 decades and oversaw major industrial and economic changes. His leadership helped transform the Soviet Union into a powerful global state, but these changes came with a very high human cost. Stalin launched a series of political purges aimed at removing anyone who might challenge his authority. Government officials, military leaders, intellectuals, and ordinary citizens were often accused of disloyalty. Many were imprisoned in forced labor camps known as gulags. At the same time, economic policies affecting agriculture caused severe disruptions in food production, contributing to devastating famines that affected millions of people across the country. Number 5. Qin Shi Huang. More than 2,000 years ago, China was divided into multiple rival states that fought constantly for power. Qin Shi Huang changed this situation after successfully defeating his competitors and declaring himself the first emperor of a unified China. His rule introduced major reforms designed to centralize control across the empire. Systems of writing, currency, and measurement were standardized so that administration could function more efficiently across vast territories. Large infrastructure projects also began during his reign, including early defensive walls that would later become part of the Great Wall of China. However, Qin Shi Huang ruled with extremely strict laws and harsh punishments for those who opposed his authority. Critics of the government faced severe consequences, creating an atmosphere where obedience was enforced through fear. Number 4. Pol Pot. During the 20th century, Cambodia experienced one of the most extreme political transformations in modern history. Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge movement seized power in 1975 and immediately began implementing radical changes to society. Their goal was to transform Cambodia into a completely rural and self-sufficient country. Cities were evacuated and millions of people were forced to move into the countryside to work in agricultural labor programs. The government abolished money, private property, and many traditional institutions. Anyone associated with education, government, or foreign influence was viewed with suspicion. These policies created widespread famine, disease, and suffering throughout the country. Within only a few years, a significant portion of Cambodia's population had died as a result of the regime's policies. Number 3. Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong was one of the most influential political leaders of the 20th century and the founder of the People's Republic of China. His leadership dramatically reshaped the political structure of the country and its role in global politics. However, some of Mao's policies produced devastating consequences. One of the most significant programs was the Great Leap Forward, which attempted to rapidly industrialize China and reorganize agricultural production across the country. Instead of improving productivity, the program disrupted farming systems and created severe food shortages in many regions. The famine that followed became one of the largest in recorded history. Later, Mao launched another major campaign known as the Cultural Revolution, which created widespread political chaos and targeted many intellectual and cultural institutions. Number 2. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is widely recognized as one of the most powerful conquerors in world history. Born with the name Temujin, he united the Mongol tribes and built an army capable of defeating much larger and more established civilizations. His forces moved quickly across enormous distances and used highly organized military strategies. As Mongol armies expanded across Asia and into parts of Europe, cities that resisted their rule sometimes faced devastating consequences. Entire regions were destroyed during these campaigns, and historians estimate that the Mongol conquests caused tens of millions of deaths across Eurasia. At the same time, the Mongol Empire also helped expand trade routes and connections between distant cultures, especially along the Silk Road, creating one of the most influential empires ever formed. Number 1. Adolf Hitler. At the top of the list is Adolf Hitler, the leader of Nazi Germany, whose actions reshaped global history during the 20th century. After rising to power in the 1930s, Hitler established an authoritarian government built around extreme nationalist and racial ideology. These beliefs led to aggressive territorial expansion across Europe and eventually triggered the outbreak of World War II. The conflict became the deadliest war in human history, affecting countries across multiple continents. Under Nazi rule, millions of people were persecuted and killed, including political opponents, minority groups, and civilians living in occupied territories. Entire cities were destroyed during the war, and tens of millions of lives were lost before the conflict finally ended in 1945. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.